I got a call from a friend this morning saying that they were going to be in the area with a few horses, asking if I wanted to join them on a ride. We met up at a trailhead about an hour and a half from my house. Oh my goodness. I really wanted to bring Ziggy out on this ride, but he's at home babysitting Scarlett today, so I am just gonna catch a ride on one of their animals for the day. It looks like this handsome fellow is gonna be my mount for the day. He may look a little bit different than my typical mount. This is Charles, and he is a mule. For anyone unfamiliar with what exactly a mule is, Charles is the product of a horse mother and a donkey father. I'm not really sure exactly how he's bred, but he's probably by a mammoth jack and out of a draft mare of some type. I'm not exactly sure how tall he is, but I'm guessing he's about 15'3" or so. The other horses on the ride today are going to be a draft cross in the middle and then a little quarter horse on the end there. This time of year we are limited in the amount of time we have to ride, so we're going to hurry up and get all of these animals ready and then hit the trail.
Chuck? Did he go by Charles? Chuck? Charles?
I didn't realize when I left my house this afternoon that I was supposed to bring a saddle to the little rendezvous today. Luckily, I do happen to have 2 extra ones in my truck.
Charles!
The 2 saddles that I have in my truck are ones that I bought earlier this season, and I haven't even tested them out yet. One has a pretty wide tree and the other one is a normal full quarter horse bars. I'm going to try this stripped down saddle on Charles first. This saddle has a big flare to the front and also a really wide gullet, and it just does not fit Charles. Thankfully, the 2 saddles that I do have today are very different, and this next one should fit him perfect. This one is an older Circle Y, and it looks like it's gonna fit him pretty good. Since I haven't ever put this on a horse before, I am adjusting all of the straps. I need a cinch. We are going to be going on some steeper up and down terrain, so I am going to put a breast collar on him as well.
Come on, Chuck. Up, Chuck. Up, Chuck. Oh.
When I went to cinch him up, I realized the latigo was only attached by a tiny little string. The latigo is the leather piece that attaches the cinch to the saddle. It's where you tighten it up. I have seen some pretty serious wrecks when people's latigo breaks or it's not secured properly, so it made me a little bit nervous that this one was just hanging on by basically one tiny little leather shoestring. We really didn't have a super good fix for it out on the trail, so I'm just going to not tighten the cinch up as tight as it should be and really hope for the best.
He might buck you right off.
He will?
This thing, oh yeah.
One thing about riding with friends, especially those you grew up with, they will give you a little bit of a hard time about pretty much everything. Charles is still convinced that I'm a dude and have no idea how to ride. With his saddle a little bit looser than it should be, I found a big rock and tried to shimmy on up.
I really do know how to ride a horse.
You're killing it.
After triangulating the perfect rock to use as a mounting block, I finally was able to get on without the saddle slipping. The parking lot was right next to the trailhead, so we were able to hit the trail right away. The trail today is not terribly long, it's only about 9 miles. We are going to start off with making our way up the side of the mountain on some little zigzaggy switchbacks. We stopped for a moment to adjust some of the tack. My stirrups are a little bit on the short side, but I didn't feel like getting down off of Charles and trying to hop back up again. As we made our way up through the trees, I was really surprised to see quite an accumulation of snow on the ground. Charles continued to test whether or not I actually knew how to ride by rubbing me past some trees and getting a few snacks every now and then. This mule is a steady Eddie who spends lots of times in the mountains with people that do not know how to ride, so this should be a pretty easy ride for me today. I don't have to worry about him doing anything silly. Pretty much the only thing he's going to try and do is take a few little snacks here and there.
Excuse me.
This is pretty typical of a seasoned horse that takes a little bit of advantage of an unseasoned rider. The two doggos that we have on the ride today are Polly and Oakley. Since this trail is on National Forest Service, they do have to be under control at all times. These two girls go out on the trail all of the time. They have awesome recall and some pretty cool commands that make them perfect trail companions. Right when we finish our climb, we pass our first test for them.
Charles really likes to get a snack or two.
Here's some bikes. Some bikes?
There were two bicyclists and a hiker that passed us. Both of the girls laid down and waited for them to pass. Once the coast was clear, these girls were given a command for them to go back to work. Huckleberry is not this well behaved in public, so that is why he didn't come on the trail today. This trail system is really cool. Right now we are still making our way up to the main road. Here is a map to the trail we're riding today. We started our journey at Sagebrush Flats and we're gonna head up and tackle some of the really cool things that you can see on this trail. We are gonna follow the main road to one tunnel, and then there is another tunnel that we're gonna hit along the way as well. The first tunnel is about 500 feet long and the second one is about 1,200 feet long. If we make it through both tunnels, the end will have a 600-foot suspension bridge that we have to go across. This thing is pretty high off the ground and I'm not sure whether or not I'm actually going to go over it with Charles, but we've got quite a ways to go before we get to that point. We are still getting to know each other, and for the first part of this trail, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy some of the scenery.
on the trees. These? Oh yeah, that was it. I'm just kidding. They're hiding.
There are some places in Montana where the dogs are not particularly well behaved, and we ended up passing a gentleman who had a little bird dog kind of tucked back in the woods. He was really impressed and surprised at how good these two girls
ankles
were
are
on the
hurting.
trail.
Yeah. This is how I like them. Signs of yesteryear.
I know I'm going to get some comments on these two crazy girls around the horses, but they are very well trained. In addition to having really good recall, they have some commands that you can give them when they're quite a ways away. Here you can see that they're patiently waiting for their next command. The black and white one, Oakley, is a little bit excited to get back out on the trail. Once we get past them, they're given a command to get out in front. A pretty handy trick to have when you're packing a long string of horses or mules. While the 3 horses we're on today are fairly seasoned, it does take a while for most new horses to get used to these girls zipping around. It was really nice to have areas of sun peeking through the trees. I believe this area is only open to horses until the end of October, so we're catching it just in time for the end of the season.
We got a little puddle.
With the weather getting a little bit colder, we did not see too many people out on the trail, and that was pretty nice even though it was really chilly out. This trail does have little offshoots that you can go out and venture on, but today we are just doing the tunnels and the big bridge. Eventually, we found ourselves at the entrance to the first tunnel.
He walks out in front. He's been in lots of train tunnels.
You told me you said you didn't know if you would go in it. Oh, you can see the end.
There's a short one.
Hazardous ice melts from inside the tunnel and then makes the ice. It melts from the top inside because we're in the mountain, and then it drips, and then the ground becomes an ice skating rink.
I could tell that Charles wasn't too excited about going through this long tunnel. He got his big old satellite dishes moving around trying to calculate where exactly we were going. This video makes it look a lot lighter than it actually was. There was a big chunk of this tunnel that we could not see the ground for, so the horses and Charles were pretty much on their own. Thankfully, horses can see almost as well in the dark as they can during the day, so this is one of those times where you just have to trust the animal that you're on and hope for the best. I am not sure if Ziggy would have gone through here with horses that
Charles.
he didn't know, so I'm kind of glad I didn't bring him. This is one of those scenarios with an unknown horse like Ziggy. I probably would have gotten off and let him
Charles.
through this tunnel. I was having a little bit of vertigo because you cannot see the ground, so I was really excited to see the end of the tunnel getting closer.
Boy, Charles.
There's another very famous tunnel in Montana called the Ptarmigan Tunnel up in Glacier National Park that I have gone through with horses before, but it is nowhere near as big as this one. What do you mean longer? Like more butt clenching? I think I might.
I think about the collies. Oh yeah, Charles could come down this, no problem. Like on that flat spot? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Switchback?
It was definitely a lot colder when we popped through the first tunnel. As you can see, there is snow on the trees all around us, and Charles got a little bit of a pep in his step. The big half draft out in front is Tadpole, and this little quarter horse name is Baby Bunker. He's seen a lot of the world, but he's still learning the ropes a little bit. While those two trotted up ahead to get their blood pumping a little bit, Charles and I decided to hang back.
It's all right, Charles.
Charles really started to move out at this point. His ears started flopping relaxed as he went down the trail, and we really got to cruising a little bit.
It's all right, Charles. Taking in the scenery, buddy. Oh, he needs a snack.
Every once in a while, Charles would still try and sneak a snack in. I think he could tell when I was videotaping and when I was on high alert. Here is another little trail that goes off the main one. This would be a really cool trail system if it were closer to my house. It would be great to get some of the young horses out on here. The footing is really great, and it's a relatively safe trail. I would imagine in the summer, though, that it is very busy. We are only about a quarter of the way through the trail, and Charles is really starting to get in a groove now. Even when the other horses trotted on ahead, he just stayed at pretty much the same cruising speed the whole entire time. The more I get to know Charles, the more I'm thinking that maybe the next horse that I rehab should be a mule. As we got closer to the second tunnel, I didn't know whether or not Charles would get the courage to go through first. He was a little bit hesitant about the last one, but maybe since he's already experienced it once, he'll go right through. The girls were still on high alert, clearing the trail for us as we went along. While I do wish it was a little bit warmer out, it was kind of beautiful to see all of the snow on the trees as we came up on the tunnel. As we got to the mouth of the tunnel, Charles, although suspicious, just walked right in. It is kind of hard to explain what happens when you go in one of these. There's a lot of echoing that goes on and the air does change quite a bit. All of these horses are pretty seasoned, so they do see a lot of different things, but I can imagine that a horse that doesn't get out and see a lot of the world would have a significant amount of trouble navigating something like this. As we continued through the tunnel, it just got darker and darker. You really can't see in the video, but the walls of the tunnel changed as well. It was more like natural rock than concrete. My phone is also picking up a ton of light that you could not see in real life. This tunnel is at least twice as long as the first one, and there was a good chunk in the middle where you could not see anything. There was a change in the footing as well. It kind of felt like river rock or big pebbles.
All right, buddy. Okay.
When we were about halfway through, Charles got a little bit scared of something. Since I could not see, I have no idea what it was. It could have been the change in the footing or something that was on the walls that he could see that I could not. Thankfully, Tadpole went right up next to us and started to lead the way as we came out of the tunnel.
Easy, buddy. Whoa.
Just about the time our eyes were adjusting to the light, there was a drain pipe or something that scared Tad on the ground. Not a huge deal, he just was a little bit surprised that it was there. Charles was really excited to see the end of the tunnel. When we finally reached the end, there was a little bit of a hint as to why the horses were maybe a little bit nervous going through the tunnel. For most of it, there was a bicycle tailing us, and I think the horses could see it, but we had no idea he was there. Once the horses could see the bicycle out of the tunnel, it was no big deal, and we just carried on along our way. After the second tunnel, the terrain changed a little bit. We were seeing a lot more of the big rocks on the side of the trail. It wasn't as closed in and dense as it was earlier, and it just made the scenery a little bit more magical.
Cold.
further we went down the trail, the colder it seemed to get, and we started seeing a lot more snow. A sad reminder that winter is definitely on the way in Montana.
Do we need to pony this mule or is he actually gonna stay here?
Well, I'll just get off and walk.
Oh, fine, you walk.
When we did make it to the bridge, I decided to get off Charles. In the last couple of years, I've gotten a pretty serious fear of heights sometimes, and this bridge is so high off the ground. I probably could have just stayed on Charles and closed my eyes and it would have been totally fine, but I kind of wanted to get some shots of the horses traversing the bridge from the ground. I can't say that I regret my decision to get off and avoid the mental turmoil of going over this super tall bridge. Charles, of course, went over it just fine, and it looked like he was even taking a nap as he was moving along. It was really cool to hear the hoofbeats echo through the woods as the horses went across the bridge. It was at this point that I realized how cold I actually was. I didn't bring gloves on this little adventure and I was definitely starting to feel it.
Yeah, it is a little slippery.
This trestle bridge is definitely not for the faint of heart, and I would assume that your horse needs to be a little bit seasoned before trying to go across it. On our ride today, we do have to go all the way back to where we parked, so we couldn't go down the trail any further. Before I hopped back on Charles, I decided to put my stirrups down a few notches.
Collie out in front.
Since this trail is an out and back, the horses did get a little bit excitable when they realized we were heading back to the trailer. Bunker and Tadpole
All
went
right,
for a little bit
Charles.
of a lope down the trail on one of the flat spots. Charles is actually the same exact age as Tadpole at 12 years old. He does seem to be a little bit more chill. He can handle being by himself, but still listens to all of the cues I'm giving him. I think at this point he realizes that I am not a dude and that I can actually tell him what I want him to do without too much of a fuss. He stayed pretty engaged and walked out really nicely as we were heading back to the trailer. I'm not sure how fast we're going, but this mule definitely walks out a lot faster than the horses were with today. It was kind of fun just to give him his head and let him go on autopilot as we caught up to the other horses. Even though Charles is a very trustworthy mule, I can't say that I'm excited to go back through this tunnel again. With the sun going down, it is getting quite a bit cooler and we are losing the light a little bit, so I'm really hoping this tunnel isn't darker than it was before. But as we step into the tunnel, it became very obvious that it was indeed quite a bit darker. As we got to the middle of the tunnel, it was almost complete darkness. There were a few little spots of light here and there reflecting off the rocks, but for the most part, we just had to trust our horses until we made it to the other side.
I think that's what he saw and he didn't want to go past it. All right, buddy. Whoa, it is cold.
This is the point in the ride where I really just wanted to get back to the trailer so I could hop in my truck and warm up my frozen little hands. Instead of going through the other tunnel, we are going to go up and around.
500 feet.
Hopefully this will keep us in the sun for a little bit longer and we won't turn into complete icicles.
Oh yeah. Chuck is just getting warmed up.
It was really pretty when we were going up and over the mountain. The light started peeking through the trees.
A descent? Ooh, it's frozen ground. It looks like it gets rather steep.
You can see the trail bed right there. Stop. I'm confident in the outcome.
That's what you always say. The ground is pretty hard. Oh, we are here. Whew. Ooh.
After we safely made it down off the mountain, we could definitely tell that the horses were ready to get back to the trailer as well. We really haven't been out on the trail for too long, but with the temperature starting to drop pretty drastically, I really am ready for this ride to be over. It was a little bit hard to take in the spectacular views when my fingers and toes were starting to go numb.
400 feet.
Just when I was beginning to lose feeling in my feet, we started our descent down off of the main trail. I'm really glad I decided to come out and join these ladies on a trail ride today.
Hey. Hello. Ah, Charles. Come on.
I think Charles was losing his sense of humor about me and was definitely ready to hop back on the trailer and go home. He was a perfect gentleman on the ride, and I couldn't have asked for a more handsome steed. As I regained the feeling in my fingers and toes, it was time to untack these horses, give them a nice brush, a little bit of water, and load them back on the trailer. This trail system is really cool, and I can imagine myself coming back here with some of the other horses who need to learn the ropes. I don't see myself making it back out here before the end of the month, so I'll probably have to wait until next spring to come back here. A lot of working stock in Montana do get the winter off, but I think Charles has a few more trips to do before he can get a little bit of R&R. Charles stays gainfully employed all summer at the Spotted Bear Ranch up in northern Montana.
Wait.
A big shout out to these cowgirls for letting me tag along for the day and lending me this handsome dude. I hope you guys enjoyed today's ride as much as I did. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.